Like, I'm not joshing ya. Like, this is my life, right?
Hi lovelies, and welcome back to another TikTok video. If you're new here, my name is Belinda Stranad and here is Belly's pictures. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload a video, you will be the first person to be notified. And to my returning subscribers, thank you so much for all the love and support. To those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, you guys are the real MVP. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Alright lovelies, let's get into it. So guys, I came across this video on my For You page on TikTok and I thought to share with you guys where this Hispanic man have this one question to ask everyone. Like, he went ahead to ask but people of color, black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, and all of that. Actually, everyone have their own opinion on this particular question concerning race and cis. Guys, I'm just able to put up some stitch from all of these people. Just leave me your own thought in the comment section of what you think of this video, and do not forget that this channel does not support any form of bullying, harassment, or whatsoever. We are just here for educational purposes, guys. Alright lovelies, let's get into the video.
This question goes out to my white people and all of my people of color here in America. How old were you when you came face to face with the realities of racism? For me, I grew up in a strange household filled with an abundance of love, where I was halfway sheltered, but I was also overly exposed to things that I should have never seen in life. By the time I was 5, thanks to my older brothers, I knew things that I should have never learned until I was probably an adult. But without a shadow of a doubt, it was this reality that maintained this balance, keeping me always more mature than kids my age. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, Hollywood in the 80s, and I grew up around Latinos and people of color for most of my time there. I never knew, nor did we discuss systemic racism or the realities of racism. I don't think my family had any idea of what reality we were living in, what kind of police force we had in the city, what kind of crimes were actually happening to black people in Los Angeles in the 80s. My brothers being from New York, my mom decided to take us back to the East Coast, back for them. What a lot of people don't realize is that the Los Angeles riots that happened in the early 90s weren't just the only riots. There were plenty of riots in the late 80s, especially right when we moved. It was the filmed beating of Rodney King that exposed the reality of systemic racism, at least to my generation. But again, I was never surrounded by racism, so when I would watch things on television like the beating of Rodney King, I, thanks to the media at the time, portrayed black people as being the bad ones. I've been doing research on videos on YouTube of the Los Angeles riots and riots all across America that were unjust towards people of color, especially black people, and you could just hear the language. You can find the bias. You can see how it was documented for ages and how it was taught to viewers. The realities of wrongful convictions didn't exist in our world back then. In my family, we glorified the police. All of my uncles were police from Puerto Rico to New York to Florida. We were always brainwashed to believe that our system worked for us. Living in New Jersey and New York, I still never came face to face with racism, at least I thought, because it never impacted me. My neighbors were either Italian or Latino, and everybody spoke Spanish. Anytime any Latino kid ever used the N-word towards black people, it was never in a derogatory sense. It was just the way they used it in terms of endearment, or in a sense of showing dominance in any altercation. Fast forward to 1996, where we moved down south to be with my older brother in Georgia. I luckily finished off the 7th grade down in Georgia in a school that was surrounded by minorities still. There were white kids, but there was an abundance of black kids and Mexican kids. The only thing that stood out was my Jersey accent, and boy was it heavy. But by the time I got to the 8th grade, I was 11 turning 12 that May. And in this school, I was the only Latino child in the entire school alongside another Mexican boy. Our first week of school, that boy got beaten so badly he was hospitalized and his mother had to pull him from the school. I had no idea why. I grew up in Cali and Jersey. Fights were normal. I didn't know if he pissed somebody off. I didn't know what was happening. Until a couple of weeks later, I started getting warnings from kids in the school saying, "Hey, you're next." I was absolutely confused. I was a kid who didn't fuck with anybody. I didn't mess with anybody. And one morning I got in a fight in a courtyard with this white boy who started jumping me and attacking me, and he was a lot smaller than I was, but I had to defend myself. I ended up slamming him against a brick wall so hard I sent him to the hospital. This wasn't even a month into 8th grade. And to be expected, I immediately was called to the principal's office. I went inside and I talked to this ginormous man who, luckily for me, was from New York but lived in the South for years. He took a look at me and he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Jersey," of course with my attitude and my accent. And he goes, "Well, yeah, I can tell that." And then he told me a series of things that opened my eyes to a reality that I had no idea existed. He took a look at my record and he said, "Listen, you are the only Latino child in this school. The other one that was here got sent to the hospital because he was Latino." He says, "You're going to run into a lot of racism that plagues the hallways of this school and has plagued the hallways of every Southern school for years and years. And you're going to have to fight to survive. But here's the deal." He said, "I will let you fight and protect yourself on 2 conditions. A, you not only fight for your survival and you don't send anybody to the hospital, but B, you fight for your education and you have to get A's and B's by the end of the school year." I laughed so hard in his face because my entire school career I was a CD student barely making it past every grade. At this age I had no idea that I was ADHD and dyslexic. But he told me, he says, "You can get in as many fights as you want, don't send them to the hospital, prove your point. But if I find out that by report card time you don't have A's and B's, you're out of here." My mother, being the overprotective mother that she was, if she had found out that this was my reality in this new school, she would have lost her shit. And my home life would have been a lot more uncomfortable. So I kept it to myself. Anyway, every day after that day, I got jumped in school by 4 or 5 white kids. I'd get my hair pulled in class, I'd get jumped after gym. What I didn't know was that my principal had conversations with all of my teachers and I didn't know, at least not till way later. Every day I'd come home out of the school bus and finding different ways to mask my knuckles because they were so bloody, or my nose because it was bloody, my clothes because they were bloody. I had 3 hours before my mom would get home from work before she would find out. With all of this going on, I was still unaware of what exactly was at play. I didn't realize that racism was still so alive. I didn't realize that it was so in your face, especially down in the South. This was my first experience ever, and I carried a lot of guilt with me because I was so oblivious growing up as a child. I told the story to one of my mentors one day, and he told me not to have guilt because this was my opportunity to develop a lot of empathy, not only for myself, but to understand that we all live in bubbles. Some people have bubbles bigger than others, but they're all bubbles. And we don't really know the realities that we all go through, each and every one of us. We don't understand our upbringings. We don't understand where we missed the mark. We don't understand where others missed the mark. But it is in this learning that we have a responsibility to open our eyes, to grow, to mature, and be a society that works collectively to understand that not everybody grew up the same way. None of this is a reason to excuse anyone's ignorance. This is simply a reminder that we are all ignorant, that we were all brought up in the same time periods, confused, given different information, painted different pictures. And now we know better, and we're getting to know better. If my educating individuals who are willing to listen absolutely makes a change in their life, then I will forever continue down this path.
Like I've had quite a few situations, but a memorable one that stood out to me, I think I was about 20 to 21 years old. So it was me, the homie Bino, the homie Jesse, and his cousin who was visiting from Mexico, who we called Primo. And we were hanging out outside of Bino's house in the alley in Jesse's car. It was probably like around midnight. It just had been the new year and we were just kicking it, catching up, right? And then like 30 minutes into us just being in the car chilling, like a helicopter pulls up. There's like 2 patrol cars in the front, and then there's other 2-3 patrol cars in the back, and then they start flashing the lights, and all you hear is "Put your hands outside the window." And we're just like, oh damn, like what's happening? So then we put our hands outside the window, right? So then and a cop goes to Jesse, who's in the driver's seat. I'm behind him, and there's a cop at my window. Chino's to my right, and there's a cop at his window. And then Primo has shotgun seat, and there's a cop at his window. And they're asking us questions, right, in English. And then Primo didn't speak English, he only spoke Spanish. So then the cop was asking him for his name, and Primo was like, oh, like, I don't speak English. And the cop was like, stop lying to me. And then we had guns pointed at us, and we were just all like in shock, and I'm kind of just like frozen. And then I overhear the conversation between Primo and the officer that he's with. And then the officer switches to Spanish, and he was like, no me mientas o te voy a matar, with a gun pointed straight to Primo's face. They put us in like the backseat of the cars, and then while they sort everything out, right? And it turns out that someone had made a call that there was people in the alley with guns and masks, in which we had neither.
I came face to face with the realities of racism on two very different fronts at a pretty young age. The first is that my family was living in Southeast Michigan, and I was just shy of 4 years old when Vincent Chin was killed in Detroit by disgruntled auto workers who thought that he was Japanese and were scapegoating Japanese for the decline of the Detroit auto industry. And it's not just that it was being reported on in the local news and my parents were understandably concerned, it's that my family was also experiencing firsthand the racial discrimination and scapegoating of Asians for manufacturing jobs going overseas that had led to Vincent Chin's death. So for a number of years, we would randomly experience having our windows egged, our tires slashed, people would yell slurs at us, we would get things thrown at our car, we experienced denial of service, and pretty much during the entire Reagan years, we had a protocol when on road trips where we would try not to stop anywhere unfamiliar, but if we had to, my mom would wait in the car with my brother and I with the doors locked and the engine running while my dad would go in to scope out whether a place was safe. And on multiple occasions, it was not. And where it really hit home for me was, I think I was about 5 years old and I was out walking with my parents and somebody yelled, damn J-word at us. And at that age, it made sense to me to yell back, we're not Japanese. And my dad immediately took me aside and told me to never do that again, because people who would discriminate against and scapegoat Japanese for things that they don't have any control over would do the same thing to Chinese or any other Asians. And I am not kidding. As soon as we got home, I even got the demonstration about how one chopstick alone breaks easily, but how the whole bunch cannot be broken, and that this is why Asians need to stick together. The most harrowing thing that happened when I was 7 years old is we came home one day and there was a message left on our answering machine that was targeting me by name. And I did not understand at that time that clearly bigots were just going through the phone book looking for Asian last names. They had called our number and our outgoing answering machine message said all of our names. So they didn't know whether I was 7 or 17. It just made it clear that as the daughter of the family, I would be an easy target, and they were threatening SA. And at that age, I think that I didn't even understand a lot of what they were threatening. I just knew that from the tone of their voice and some of what I understood that it was inappropriate and it was scary. And I remember covering my ears and just shutting my eyes and crying and eventually hiding in my room. Now, unfortunately, my parents didn't know how to deal with this, so they dealt with it by really not dealing with it. They erased the message. They changed our outgoing message so it no longer said all of our names, and I think that we even became unlisted in the phone book for a number of years. But they did not tell me that the people who were calling didn't know anything about me. I wasn't being targeted personally. They didn't even know where we lived, and I was going to be safe, probably. And moreover, they never told me that it wasn't my fault. And I think that is when I really started to internalize racism and went through about a decade where I just wished that I wasn't Asian, because in my mind that would have fixed all of these problems. It wasn't until I was nearly college age that I had an opportunity to meet and hang out with a larger Asian community and really feel comfortable and find belonging there that I even began to start reclaiming my Asian identity. In a previous video, I spoke in depth about the second way in which I came face to face with the realities of racism at a young age, and that had to do with confronting my mom's own anti-blackness. When I started school, her difference in attitude towards my black classmates versus other classmates became very apparent, and it angered me because at that age I already knew what it was to experience racial discrimination that had no basis in who we are as people and was about things that we can't control. So I felt like, how dare she turn around and do the exact same thing to any other group of people? And I also talked about how I was fortunate enough that the principal of my elementary school was a Black woman who had implemented a program called Students Educating Each Other About Discrimination. And that is where I learned the tools to identify, discuss, and disrupt all forms of discrimination, including racial discrimination. And I talked about the years of uphill battle that it took to get my mom to recognize and admit to her racism and to begin unpacking her biases, which she eventually did. So it's always interesting to me when I hear white parents and educators talk about how young is too young to introduce children to the concept of race, because the reality for many parents and children of the global majority in the United States is they won't get a choice. For many of us, we will be confronted with the realities of racism at a very young age, the first time somebody forces us to experience it.
Back to 2014/15. Now, around that time period, I was a college student who was pretty much trying to support himself by having a job, a full-time job while going to school. Now, in order for me to do that, I had to have a job, and the job at the time happened to be a shaver dealership under the ownership of a person by the name of John Rowley. This was taking place in a small town called Levelland, Texas, so if you know where I'm from, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, whenever I first met John Rowley, I didn't really think much of the guy. I thought the guy was down to earth because I never met somebody who made a lot of money, who was an owner of a business, who actually cared about me getting my education. It wasn't really until the holidays hit that he really started to show his true color. Now, around Thanksgiving, we all received our little bonuses as well as a little turkey, which was great. Whenever we received our bonuses, I was the only person to receive $25 while everybody else received $100 and more. I mean, there was literally a secretary who was working there who hardly showed up to work, who always called in, and despite her getting called out, she still received a lot more money than I did for a bonus, even though I was there doing my shift every single day. Now, whenever the cars first come off the top of the truck, we have to prep them. We have to make sure the battery's good. We have to make sure that all the stuff, the accessories and whatnot are all installed. The car antenna has been put on. We have to make sure that all that stuff was good. And every time you finish one, you get paid an additional $10 for doing so, but you have to be an apprentice in order to make that kind of money. Whenever I put in my application to become that said apprentice, I was denied. I was doing at least 10 cars a day, so that's $100 additional that could possibly help me with gas or food whenever I was living inside college. But this next part is what really confirmed it for me that I was really dealing with discrimination inside of racism. Now, there was this other person who started working there who I would not remain because I definitely have a lot of respect for this person. But this person happened to be a felon who happened to know the owner of this Chevy dealership through his own father. Now, my whole entire life, I've been told that if you ever get locked up in prison, it'll be hard for you to find a job, let alone keep a job. I'm a college student who showed up to work every single day. I never really missed a day unless I really had to miss that set. I was going to school full time as well as working a job full time, and I was there every single day again. But for some weird reason, right, all the people who was making the sales to the cars and whatnot all got together and collectively agreed to let me go while keeping that person who was a felon. And again, I have nothing against that guy. He was a great guy. May his soul rest in peace. Never in my life would I think that a person who actually kept their nose clean would ever lose a job just because of people not necessarily liking your presence to be there. The moment that I lost my job just because for whatever reason was the moment I started to realize that I was really dealing with something a lot bigger than just myself. Everything that I thought about this country really started to change whenever that stuff happened. But during that time, that was definitely one of the most interesting parts of my life that I would never forget.
I was 17 years old. I went to college a year early because I skipped like a stupid grade, like kindergarten or something, and I was always advanced. My mom didn't want me to skip any more grades because I was very emotionally not on par with my age mates, and I was always told that I like talk white and I act white and I'm a white girl and you're white inside and you're not black enough, da 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 da. And I took that to heart. I took that to heart and decided that, okay, I'm gonna be white then, and I'm gonna go to this PWI. And don't get me wrong, I have a whole other spiel about HBCUs. My whole family went to HBCUs. I've known about racism my whole life in theory. Like on paper, it's always existed to me. It's always been a thing. But in my mind, okay, if I'm white then, as they say, then I'll just be white. But then I got to that school and I was not, I mean, many of my friends were white, and I hung with a more multicultural crowd just because of the type of person I was. Like, I wanted to get to know everybody from all the different places. So I knew all the foreign exchange students, you know, from Africa and from Asia and from all over. But my like American friends were predominantly either white or raised with white people. So white passing and raised with white people, like Indian but kind of fair, raised around white people, all their friends are white. So that's kind of what I was working with. And I don't remember the exact moment on that campus when I realized that everybody was racist. Maybe it was the day I stepped off the campus, but I was only there for a year and a half, and that's a whole other story for another day. But it was rough. And when I reflected back and I thought, what made it so rough? I've never had such a tough time. Like, and I don't necessarily get along with people. I had a hard time in high school getting along with people, but I wanted to be there so badly. And I was so excited, and I was so kind, and I worked so hard. And it was just thing after thing after thing after thing that didn't seem to make sense unless it was racism, because I wasn't doing anything to these people. Like, I had this professor, for example, I don't even know how I ended up in English 99. Like, my SAT, I got the highest, I think I got one of the highest SAT scores, but I got like a 1785 because I was really sick the day I took my SAT. Like, I was cramping, I was really messed up the day I took my SAT. So my writing portion, I guess, was not up to my usual par. So I ended up testing into English 99. I wasn't about to retake the SAT just to redo the writing part. So I was like, whatever, I'll just take English 99. I ended up in English 99 with a bunch of English language learners, which is not the class I'm supposed to be in ever. Like, I've been in advanced reading and English classes my entire life. I was never supposed to be in that class, but I was like, cool, this is an opportunity for me to help others. Like, this is an opportunity for me to, and you know, me trying to be a savior, support people, and I did. I was useful in that class. But my teacher, adjunct, Miss McCormick, never forget you, boo, never forget you. She was like a who, with her nose like pointed up at me all the time. She always had errors in her PowerPoints, and she used to get upset when I would call them out, but I felt like I needed to because there were other people in the class trying to learn English, and this is an English class. And then I remember we did this report where we were supposed to write about something that happened to us as a child. And I've always been a very articulate child. I learned to read when I was 2. Like, I'm not joshing ya. Like, this is my life, right? I told you I skipped kindergarten. What an arbitrary grade to skip, you think, but you have to know a lot at that age to skip kindergarten. You have to know how to read and write so you go to first grade. Like, so we wrote a paper, and I don't exactly remember what the paper was about, but there was some part of the paper where I was explaining what I did when I was a child. It was supposed to be from the perspective of me as a child. And when I got my paper back, I got a C. I don't get C's, y'all. Like, any paper that I turn in on time, I'll get an A. And if I turn in late, it's an A minus whatever late points. I don't get bad grades. Well, I get my paper back as a C, and I said, well, why did you give me that? And she said, because this doesn't sound like true. It sounds like you lied. It sounds like you're not talking about, like, it sounds like you're not actually talking about what happened when you were a child. What? So I had to dumb my paper down for her. And at the time, again, I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is racist. I was thinking, this bitch doesn't like me. What did I do to her? What did I do? This, and I'm like, I'm trying to explain to her, I'm like, ma'am, this is my life. I am an advanced person. Like, I'm explaining to her the SAT, how I ended up in English 99, the fact that I decided to stay so I could help people. Like, she's just not hearing none of that. And it wasn't until I left and started reflecting that I was like, oh, that's racism. That's racism. She didn't like me because I was black. And that's when I had all my piercings. So I had eyebrow ring, nose ring, 2 lip ring, I might have even had 2 nose rings. I don't even know. I didn't have a tattoo on my face yet, but like, and I had an afro. Like, I wore my fro at school. Like, that's where I was at that time. And I didn't feel overtly like plagued with racism. But when I reflect, a lot of my experiences had a lot of very racist overtones that I just didn't understand because I wanted racism to have been over because they told me I'm white. So
lovely. The truth is that racism has been there even before we all were born. Like, it's something that have been in existence before so many people was born. And personally, I don't even know that, Hispanic and Asian has also, faced racism like that much from, white supremacists and all of that. I know about black people, how they've been treated like growing up as a child, I know the way that it looked like. I know the way that, these people have been treated. Like, they will actually start when you were young. You just need to, witness it one way or the other. Even if it's going out with your mom, the way you've been treated, going out with your mom, even if it's in high school, you must notice that a level at which you are treated compared to these other people that has a certain kind of color. Like, this system is something that have been endured and it's been there and it's still in existence. And what even baffles me is that a lot of people tend to shy away with it. A lot of people tend to turn a blind eyes towards, this level of race and cis, thinking that race and cis is not in existence and it's something that has happened in the past. It's something that has been happening in the past. And come to think of it, Asian people were like, I think that Asian people are also discriminatory no matter what they try to do, no matter how privileged they feel they have. Like, this white supremacy is something that Asian people actually, a little bit benefit from it. But it's not as if they are benefiting. They are just, trying to use Asian people to, put in a situation where they feel that there is nothing like, racism or discrimination. That's why it's as if in American today, Asian people are actually, succeeding and all of that. And you know what? You know that Asian people are allowed to open businesses in black neighborhood, but they are not allowed to open businesses in white, neighborhood, because they don't want Asian people to actually make profit out from white people, but they want Asian people to block the profit that black people might even make if being given opportunity to open businesses in their own community. And this is something that's been going on for a while. Like, when this guy actually popped up this question and talking the part or speaking the fact that this is something that he grew up noticing, he grew up knowing, and it's also something that have to do with where you school, your education. Like, your race is just everywhere. Like, it's just everywhere. Your institution, your workplace, medical schools, or even healthcare providers and all of that, you are treated differently just because you don't have that privilege. And this is something that everyone, the better everyone accept that this is actually in existence, the more we are just going to bring out something that might eradicate something like this, because this is something that has been going on for a very long time, and I know it's going to take a very long time for it to be eradicated. It's going to take a very, very long time. It's something that has been lasted. It's a system that has been there. It's been built and it's there. So it takes a while. It's going to take a long while for it to be eradicated. But the only problem is that when we keep on lying to ourselves that something like this does not exist, and something like this is just something that happened in the past, but it's something that we are still living with. It's something that we're still experiencing. Do you know how many videos are out there, at the level of rare and cis? Do you even know that there are also rare and cis in Black and Asian community also? Like, the thing is just ironical. Like, we all are people of color, Black people, Hispanic and all of that. Like, we have been subjected to this kind of, minorities. Like, we are in the minority group. Then this, majority group who happen to be the white supremacists, tend to like put all of us in the same category. Like, these people are just the minority and we could just use them and discard them anytime they want. But what baffles me is that in this minority group, we also tend to be rare and cis towards ourselves. Like, you find out that some of these Asian conservatives are also rare and cis towards, Black people. Some Hispanic are rare and cis towards Black people. Meanwhile, all of us are all in the same category in the face of these white supremacists. And this actually baffles me. Like, why is it like that? Like, some people tend to be more better off, dark people. Some people don't even want you to refer them as being, dark, or like as being black, and this actually affects the colorism we're experiencing today. Like a lot of people go into bleaching just for us to meet up to some certain kind of body tone, so that you will not be discriminated. Like this is something that sometimes when I think about it, it's baffles me. Like we all are all a minority, but I found out that most of these minority people are also trying to create a majority and a minority group. Like, how does this even make sense? This is why I wanted to talk about affirmative action and why it's been removed, and why I can remember when Asian people were like, oh my goodness, we don't get admitted into Ivy schools, or because our sports have been taken by this particular set of people. I think when this affirmative action comes in place, we'll be able to get admitted into this Ivy school. And because of this, they attempt to team up with supremacists and everything. One thing led to the other. This affirmative action was struck down. Then fast forward to 8 months later, there is an article going all over internet, trying to like, oh my goodness, our kids are no more admitted into these schools. Our kids are no more admitted into this Ivy. So we're thinking that when these people, when we remove this, the level at which our kids will be admitted into Ivy schools will be multiplied. But the reverse is the case. It's even decreases, and this actually give room to white supremacists to get into these schools more, compared to like the more we understand that we all are in the minority, the better. They just use some kind of people to help subdue these other people. So this is just something, this is all game. This is all game today. Like if you feel that, oh my god, like some of all these conservative Asian people, they feel that okay, we are in the same level with the majority people, which you guys are just lying to each other. They are just there to use you, after using you to get whatever they want, just to bridge that gap between race and C's, or to bridge the gap of, oh my god, let them not think that we are supremacists. They're just using you guys to bridge some gap. And some of the Latinos, because I have so many videos which I posted on my Belinda's channel with some of this other Latinos people who happen to also be in the minority group. When they see black people going to this restaurant, there are so many videos I saw on TikTok when black people goes to a restaurant owned by Latino, the way they have been attended so poorly, the way even the Asian stores, the way they've been attended poorly, the restaurant, the way they've been attended poorly, like looking down on the particular kind of race. Meanwhile, you all are in the minority group. Like, who is actually feeling good? The more we realize what we are doing, the more we accept what we are doing and try to change all of this narrative of I am more better than you, I am more, I'm in the minority better than you, I don't want to associate with you. And I wouldn't blame them. I blame their forefathers, their fathers, because these people actually grow up, and they instigate this, that people of color, especially black people, are the bad ones. No. The more we keep on educating ourselves, trying to find the reason why my parents or my grandparents, my great-grandparents often tell me that this particular set of people are actually the bad ones, the better for everyone. We all need to educate ourselves. We all need to research. No, we shouldn't listen to what our forefathers often tell us about a particular race of people, where internet is there. When internet, like, seriously, lovely. I was so happy when I saw this video. I was like, oh my goodness, so these people actually face this level of racism, but when they come in contact with people of color, or let me call black people, they act as if they're also in the majority group. So we all are just in the same, just that black people experience it more. Like, let me just say 70% of it, and 30% you guys just experience it. And if you're too light, you wouldn't even experience it. So the better for everyone to accept this fact and try to work on trying to like get all of this and make everything to to just work out and try to eradicate this level of racism in the minority groups, the better for everyone. And the more we keep on educating each other, trying to know what we've been told, if it's actually the truth, or they're just trying to like instigate us with so many, you know, racist and try to confuse us, the better for everyone. Like, we all need to go out and then make some research, read your own, find out why my parents actually say something about this particular set of people, and try to associate yourself with this kind of people. Try to create relationship with them and see if that thing which your parents have told you about this particular race is actually the truth. This is what I do sometimes. Personally, I have faced lots. Oh my goodness, it's not something that if I start saying it, oh my god, guys, why not just share us your own experience in the comment section? Subscribe to this channel if you've not done that already. Like this video, leave me your own thoughts in the comment section if you've actually faced, you know, your reality racism. Guys, leave in the comment section, and do not forget that this channel does not support any form of bullying, harassment, or whatsoever. We are just here for educational purposes, guys. So please share this video, subscribe, and I will see you lovelies when I upload my next video.